Hey guys, and welcome back to another haunted story. So, if you're new here, first off, hi, welcome. Hit that subscribe button down below and join the spooky fam. Ooh. Am I going to keep that? I don't know. If you don't know, every Monday and Friday I sit here and I tell you guys a haunted story or like a ghost story, a creepy story, anything that like sends shivers down your spine, okay? And I get glam at the same time. Sometimes the makeup looks aren't always that good because I'm not in the best creative mood, which is happening today. This is my second time doing this. Anyways, let's just jump right into the story. So the place we are talking about today is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. The asylum is located in Weston, West Virginia. It was built between 1858 and 1881. There's a little break in there because the Civil War happened and people that were working on the place were summoned for duty. The building was originally made to house 250 patients comfortably. I mean, it was a pretty big place, and it had like Gothic style architecture. I mean, the building is actually really beautiful. It kind of looks like a castle in a way. But the man behind this whole thing was a man named Thomas Kirkbride, and he was a pretty well-respected person of this time. He was a physician, and he got his degree from the University of Philadelphia, and he was a pretty well-respected man. He was an advocate for mental health services, pretty much. He wanted to help cure the patients without the use of like medicine and all that. You know, he didn't really want to shove medicine down people's throats, which is definitely unusual nowadays because it seems like that's all doctors do. After Kirkbride got his degree from the university, he started his own practice, and he would later be named the superintendent of the Pennsylvania Hospital for the Insane. He also would go on to create the Kirkbride Plan, and this was basically a code for every asylum or mental health building to have a certain code that they have to go by. So his idea for helping insane patients and whatever patients needed help was deemed to be more humane than any other person in the area at that time that was helping mental patients. He really believed that natural light and fresh air could help cure patients. So he wanted all asylums built with 12-foot ceilings and tons of big windows. He wanted light in all directions and a lot of ventilation, like air ventilation. Basically, the motive behind all of this is because he wants the patients to pretty much roam freely as much as they want and be able to look out the windows and not feel like they're in a cage. He wanted his patients to feel well at home and really peaceful and really cared for. He believed that doing this would create their own stimulation in their mind to help them get better. Like, he wanted the patients to have control over their own lives, pretty much. He didn't want them to feel like they were just locked in a cage, which is ironic. And you'll see why later. So as you can imagine, his beliefs for the medical treatment of patients caused a lot of conflict just with like the general public and mostly the medical field, because they thought that basically what he was doing was setting back medical discoveries. And other people were all for him. They totally agreed with him. They believed in his teachings because they've noticed that his patients were seeing a lot of improvement and were doing a lot better, and they backed him up completely. So because of this is what opened the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Not only was that asylum open, but it also opened 73 other asylums with the same standardized system that he wanted to basically stand by. So the Trans-Allegheny Asylum was basically like the top banana of all the asylums that were open. It was like Thomas's pride and joy. He was super proud of this. He was super excited to get his beliefs out there and to show other people what freedom and mental patients could do, I guess, is basically what he was trying to get by. So the property was a self-sufficient property. I mean, the people and the staff, they lived on the property. There was a farm, like a whole working farm. There was a dairy. There was their own water system. They had their own gas well and even their own cemetery. So they had their own means of food and work and all kinds of stuff. It was very self-sufficient. It seemed like a really nice place to go. I mean, patients could open up their windows and the grounds were designed to just be fields of hills, just like really nice grassy hills. So when the patients would look out their windows, they would be like, oh, all this openness, I'm really not trapped in a fence. But in reality, there was still a fence wrapped around the entire property. I mean, safety measures. The patients couldn't see it looking out their windows, you know, it just seemed like a really nice, peaceful place to stay. Am I an idiot? Why, yes. Yes, I am, because my camera wasn't recording this whole time when I was doing my other eye. It's fine. It's fine. You guys saw how I did it on the first eye, so sorry. Anyways, what I was saying is, so the asylum was made to make patients feel at home and everything like that. Pretty sure I already said that. But they also did like art therapy and they would have performances. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't mind staying there. Like, it seems really relaxing, right? There was a lot of open common areas so that way patients could socialize with each other and eat with each other, just hang out, you know? So as great as this place was, and well, as great as this place seemed at first, unfortunately over time the asylum would quickly become overrun. I mean, each year they were getting more and more patients for the dumbest reasons. Okay, wait till we get into that. But the asylum also would go back and forth between being called the lunatic asylum and a hospital, the Weston Hospital. So not only was it home to mentally ill people, but it was also home to like sick people. Let me throw my lashes on. Okay, so in the 1950s, the asylum became so overran that, remember, it was originally supposed to only house 250 patients. They had 2,600 patients by the 1950s. This place was incredibly overcrowded. I mean, it's like walking through an LA mall during Christmas time. I mean, it was just bumper to bumper, full of freaking people. I don't know if bumper to bumper was the right word, but it was like the best way I could describe it. Bumper to bumper. I mean, it was really sad. So the patients had to actually start sharing their rooms and stuff like that. But not only just their rooms, but their beds. So each patient would get to rest in their bed for 8 hours before they had to give it up to the next patient. So remember when I said that the asylum was like also a hospital type of shindig? Well, people were being admitted into this place for the wildest things, okay? Like, not just seen and sent home like, oh, it's just whatever. No, they were being like full on admitted into this hospital. People were being admitted for asthma, which, I mean, I can understand that. Asthma, tuberculosis, rabies. I mean, it's supposed to be a mental health hospital, and those aren't mental health. That is just medical problems. That's why I'm saying, like, why did it get converted into a hospital / asylum? That makes no sense to me. I just don't get it. And get this. Wives who didn't obey their husbands, they could get admitted into this hospital. Like, what? That makes no freaking sense to me at all. A man could literally admit his wife into this asylum / hospital, whatever the hell you want to call it, and leave her there. And if he decides that, you know what, I really don't want her back in my life, I've moved on, I found somebody else, they would have to stay there and they would be awarded the state. So, like, that's pretty shitty. I mean, your wife is just stuck in this place because you're sick of her and you're just gonna move on with your life and be free while she's trapped in this, like, shithole? God. I am so glad I don't live in, like, past times like that, because screw that. Try and take my ass to a mental hospital because you're sick of me. Try it. But that's not where the crazy admitting thing ends. So, people would be admitted for indigestion. I get indigestion all the time. All I do is take Alka-Seltzer and I'm freaking good to go. I don't need to be admitted into a hospital or an insane asylum, whatever. But people were also admitted for their political and religious views. If you started to raise like an uproar, I guess, about your political views and everything like that, you would be admitted to the hospital. They would also admit you if you questioned your heritage. I'm sorry, but what? Like, I know my heritage, well, part of it. I know that I'm part Cherokee and I'm part Irish, but I don't know anything else. But if I were to question what it was, I would get admitted into this freaking hospital. These poor freaking people. Not only were adults admitted for insane reasons, but children were also admitted there too, and it was mostly caused by moms that would go in there and they would be admitted and they would have their kid, or their husband would drop off their kid with their mom, and they would just be in this hospital with their mothers, just living in this overcrowded place. And a lot of children were actually born in the asylum. I don't know what to call it. I don't know if I should call it an asylum or a hospital, because it is the Trans-Allegheny Asylum, but it was like flip-flopping back and forth between asylum and hospital. So I don't know. So yeah, kids were often born there and they lived most of their entire lives there. People would also just drop their babies off at the front door of the asylum, like just little orphan babies that nobody wanted. That's really freaking sad. But yeah, so they took them in because there was really nowhere else to take them. It's really sad, especially for children to live in a place like that because they don't know what the hell is going on. You know, they just see like a ton of people probably trying to tell them what to do, you know? It's just, that's gotta be rough. So because of the cause of the overcrowding and everything like that, all of Thomas Kirkbride's hopes and visions for this asylum quickly went out the freaking window. Nobody cared anymore. The staff did not care because there were so many patients and there wasn't like enough orderlies to care for all of the patients. So of course, this leads to all of them being prescribed a certain medication that I can't pronounce. And basically this medication would just put them in a catatonic state for long periods of time. And then this meant that the orderlies and the staff, the nurses, they didn't have to deal with them. It was like way less people to try and handle. But not only were they giving them meds that put them in like a crazy state of mind, but they were also doling out a ton of pain meds to every single patient. So now you can only imagine that these patients are getting heavily addicted to pain meds. And I mean, like, nobody knows how these patients reacted to the pain meds. They could have gotten sick from them. It could have messed with their mind even more. It could have done anything to them and nobody would really care because they're out of their way. Not only were they just giving them meds, but they were starting to do something called insulin shock therapy and normal shock therapy to the patients. And the shock therapies would end up putting the patients into comas for long periods of time. So as if the shock therapy wasn't enough for these patients, a man by the name of Dr. Walter Freeman, I would not call him a doctor, But during that time, he was becoming really popular in the lobotomy type of medical crap. And he introduced lobotomy to the asylum. And he performed lobotomies for $25 a person. Oh my goodness. I know back then that's a lot of money, but like either way, why were lobotomies even a thing? But not only was he doing these lobotomies and everything, but he encouraged a crowd to join around him while he was doing these. Like, he was just proud of it. Like, he wanted crowds to see his good deeds and everything. Like, no, dude. Screw you. So Walter, being the fine gentleman he was, he performed what was known as an ice pick lobotomy. So basically what this is it's an instrument or a tool that they use that looks like an ice pick, and they drive it in your freaking eyeball until it touches your brain. And that's a lobotomy. Because they believed that it would disconnect some part of your brain to make you better. No. So obviously with these patients dealing with all of this trauma and this freaking procedure that this guy was doing, the patients were pretty much left brain dead. They were unable to care for themselves. They were basically just rotting away in this freaking hellhole. And a lot of patients would end up just passing away. I mean, that's really freaking sad. Whoever thought a lobotomy would help, I don't get it. But the story does sadly go on with this place. Not only were the patients suffering from the hands of doctors and people that they trusted, but they were also dying and suffering by the hands of their patients, like of their co-patients, you know, people that they lived out their days with, that they socialized with, that they ate with. People were hurting other people. From the amount of the overcrowdedness and just the treatments that they were doing, patients were just getting fed up. And they were getting angry and they were getting pissed off and they just started lashing out. It's not okay that they did this or anything, but that's what was going on. The story of one patient is insanely gruesome. A couple of patients gathered together and they tried to hang another patient. Well, it failed. I don't know why, but it just failed. So instead, they took this man to a room and they basically laid a metal bed frame over his head and they jumped on the freaking bed frame until it hit the ground. So these people just smashed in this man's head without a care in the freaking world. And I'm just going to say this. It's not okay what happened to that man, but all I'm saying is before the asylum became overcrowded, patients were doing really well because they were able to roam free. They were able to do pretty much whatever they pleased to do. They just couldn't leave the asylum. And none of this shit was going down until it became overcrowded. So maybe Thomas Kirkbride's vision for mental health was pretty accurate. The staff was also instructed to place patients that they could not control into isolation, and they would be left there for days or even weeks without anyone checking on them, anyone giving them food. Once you were in isolation, you were pretty much done for because no one was coming back for you. There was one patient who was an ex-boxer, and he suffered an injury that left him really angry, and he couldn't control his emotions. Well, they locked him up in isolation because he was fighting with all the other patients. And this man put a dent in a metal door. He was punching it so hard after they closed the door, he put a dent in it. And not only that, he ripped the door off the hinges. Okay? Straight up ripped it off the hinges. Handed it very calmly, I'm going to add. Handed it very calmly to a nurse. And just went back on his merry way to his room. Not his isolation room, just his normal room. He just went right back on. Good for him. Many other patients, when all the isolation rooms were filled up, they would just be locked in cages. Legit freaking cages. They just locked them in there and said, have a nice day. We're not coming back for you. So eventually, over time, a lot of patients just up and left on their own free will, which, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't do that in the first place. But with the amount of overcrowded that this place was, I don't even think the staff even realized when people left. I mean, they couldn't even keep track of anybody there. A lot of patients also actually would die there, and the staff would alert the family. And what's really sad is that most of the time the family wouldn't even come to claim the body or anything like that. They wouldn't take the body away. They wouldn't do their own private burial, nothing like that. So these people were buried in the cemetery on the property, and all they were given was a number to identify them and a simple, like, little tiny headstone with just a number on them. That is so freaking sad. That is awful. And patients, they were always buried there. They were never cremated. But some good news, but also news that's kind of like, what? The asylum/hospital was finally closed in 1994. I guess people finally realized that the treatments that they were doing on these patients were inhumane and decided to shut them down. What took so long? 1994, and this place has been open since when? When has this place been open? 1864. What? How did it manage to stay open that long? Did nobody just give a shit at all? Nobody? Okay. So, closed down in 1994, and in 2007, it was actually bought by a man named Joe Jordan, and he actually ended up turning the place into like a tourist attraction, I guess. And he left everything in there. So, like, beds are still in there, wheelchairs. He ended up putting pictures of the patients up that were like getting treatments done at that time. There's a picture of a man getting electroshock therapy, which I won't put up here because that is just not okay. You can look that up on your own free will. So if you go there, you can also see people's medical records and their histories. You can read people that have stayed there have left behind like their notebooks that they would write down stuff in and everything like that. Those are still there and you can read those. That's how a lot of this story came out, is from the patients that escaped and from the patients that wrote stuff down and left it there. Of course, with the history of this place being what it is, there's obviously some paranormal activity going on, right? I mean, there has to be. The staff that works there claims 2 spirits still reside there. I'm sure there's plenty of spirits that reside there, but there's 2 that stick out to them the most. And one of them is being a little girl named Lily. And she was said to have spent like her entire life in the asylum. So I'm assuming she came with her mom and then it kind of just all went downhill from there. But she was said to be like a really playful little girl, and she always liked playing games and just having fun with people and like all the other kids. Well, they say that around her room, if you like throw a ball into her room, she'll roll it back at you. Nope. Another ghost that is said to be around a lot is a man named Dean. And Dean was the patient that was murdered by the other patients with a freaking bed frame. And he is said to just be chilling in his room, hanging out. You can see him sitting at the edge of the bed or in the corner of the room, just hanging out, minding his own business. And of course, what every haunted house has reports of is slamming doors, cold spots, weird noises, people walking the halls, which makes total sense. People hear screams coming from this place. They see people looking out the windows at them. And they also will see like full-on apparitions when they're investigating this place. Just full-on body apparition. Just, what's up? I don't mean to laugh, but like, oh. It's so sad what happened to these people. It's honestly terrible. It really is. I mean, I was debating doing this story just because of all like the terrible things that happened here, but I thought it was interesting and well worth it. So the asylum, of course, is open to the public. They have daytime tours and they have what they call a flashlight tour, which I'm assuming is just a tour at night, which I think that would be pretty cool. I think I would actually visit this place if I was ever in West Virginia. But it seems like a pretty cool place to visit, and there's tons of pictures online. I mean, tons. I'm obviously going to put pictures up on my video, but if you really want to just like spend a whole day just scrolling through pictures of this place, it was amazing. And it was a big place. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty cool story. It was a little messed up. Asylums always have like this weird vibe to them. They're creepy. I mean, you're walking down a hallway and you see an abandoned wheelchair and it's just like, ugh. You know, it's creepy, right? Asylums are creepy, but I would love to investigate an asylum. I think it would be one of the coolest things ever. So, anyways, that is the story of the Trans-Allegheny Asylum. I still don't know if I'm saying that right. Trans-Allegheny. Allegheny. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you liked spending some time with me today. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up and share it. Hello, get my name out there. Share it, help me out. Subscribe to my channel. Comment down below. If you have a story you want me to do, then also comment that down below and I will do my research. I have gotten 2 stories from people that they want me to do. The stories are really short and they're kind of hard to find information on, so I think what I'm going to do is like a mini Monday type of video where I tell you like a couple of little mini creepy stories. I think that would be kind of cool. So let me know if you guys would want to see something like that. But that is all I have for you guys today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I have nothing else to say except I love you guys and I will see you in the next one. Bye!